Just for background on me, I've been a ham now. I'd say it's coming on 5 years. I think I got my ticket in 2016 or thereabouts, technician in general. So that just means my basement isn't completely full of ham gear yet, basically, I think is what that tells you. So this first picture here is kind of the main shack in the subterranean location in the basement. I have an FT991 with a Yaesu MD100 microphone kind of off to the left there. Yaesu power supply. The only thing I wasn't too thrilled about with that was they couldn't manage to put two LEDs in to light up the gauges, so I put a little light bar on there so I could see the meters. In the middle is a wonderful Linux PC from WB9RQR that I use for NetLogger, which I'll show you in a little bit. I have a Heil Pro 7 headset, which I like very much. Kind of coming back to the Yaesu on that, and I know one of the other guys has a FT991 or even 991As, I think are the same. You can have a monitor feature when you're on HF, but when you go to 2 meter or 440, it doesn't support that, and I have no idea why, because it would sure be nice. Moving over to the right a little bit, I have a Palstar tuner. And then an amplifier that came in kind of last was a Meritron AL811H, 800 watts. That's made a big difference for me on 40 meters especially. And then behind me, you can see some of the small collection I have of QSL cards or other little certificates. So I don't do a lot of them, but sometimes they're interesting ones and I want to do it, so I go send them out. So that's kind of the main view. This is NetLogger. So I got into this because there's this group in New Orleans called the Rare Ones that I get on with usually every other night or so. And they use this program. It's kind of nice if the net operator is using this, the main screen shows all the nets that are on NetLogger. Then you can pick one and monitor it, and then you'll show up in the list. And for this network down in New Orleans called the Rare Ones, that's how they pick people and sequence them to talk to you on their net. You can also use it to log contacts and stuff like that, but I mostly use it to see what nets are out here that I want to perhaps talk to. So I think it's kind of handy for that. And this is running on the Linux PC, so very handy for that. Sometimes I get bored with what sound I'm getting if I'm not using the headset, so I'll plug in a different speaker every once in a while. I don't have it in this picture, but my favorite one is using, like as I said here, one of my 1,000-watt monitor speakers from our band, which really carries well in the basement upstairs and probably into the yard behind me. I also had an electrician put in a circuit for this stuff when I was getting serious about putting all this in here. So he did that for me. It was several years back. And then this is what powers on the amplifier. So I have that always set to on, and then this is how I turn the power on or off for that. Don't know if anybody uses this or what anybody thinks about that, but it seemed like a good idea, as I said. And because I have a Shack 2.0 upstairs, I was able to figure out how to use one of these Delta switches to say, okay, if I'm going to be upstairs working in my home office and I want to listen on my FT891, then I just switch over to HF2, and that routes the antenna signal from outside upstairs to the FT891. So that's what I use to switch back and forth between the two. And of course, if the weather is really bad, then this gets disconnected, the main, and then I'll unplug everything, unplug all the radios. But was nice to be able to figure out how to do this. The cable for upstairs for the FT891 is not as heavy duty because that's only 100 watts and I never run the amplifier through that. And this is for my 2-meter antenna, which we'll see outside later. The antenna's out in the yard. There's no A and B for this one because the FT891 that's upstairs does not have a 2-meter or anything like that. So if I'm upstairs, I'm talking on one of my handhelds. And you can kind of see off to the right there, that's the copper bar that's really behind all the radios, and then everything's grounded to that, and then that ground goes outside. We'll see that next. So these are the antenna wires coming in from outside. They're going through surge breakers. That's the copper ground bar. And then antenna wires off to the Gap Titan DX we'll take a look at, and the 2-meter 440 antenna out in the yard. And this was just my way of getting the wires up so that I don't have to walk through them or pick them up or do anything else when I'm cutting the grass. Seems to be working okay so far. So this is the antenna that I have for HF. This is a Gap Titan DX. It's a multi-band vertical antenna, no ground radials. The only thing I didn't really do right, because I didn't know any better and I was a little new at this when I started, was they said when you ordered it, tell us what you want the resonant frequency to be on, 75 or 80 meters. And whoever I was sitting next to that night at a club meeting said, oh, 3680, that's what you want. I didn't realize that's in the extra class band at the time. It doesn't seem to impact using it for receive, and I'm not on those bands a lot, but works fine. So I think the plug or whatever they use to set that is way at the top, so it's not getting changed anytime soon. And then this is guide in the backyard. It moves and shakes a little bit in the wind, but there's not a whole lot for the wind to grab onto on this antenna, so it's kind of good for that as well. And it works okay. I mean, it's, as you guys know, it's omnidirectional, so I can't point it at anything. But for the lot I have and stuff, this really was the best way for me to go. So I don't think I'd ever change anything on it. It's mounted to plumber's pipe and cemented down 48 inches in the ground. So, you know, it's probably up 40 feet at the top. Just another view. What I kind of felt I had to work with, I think, in the city of Cedarburg was, I think the way I read the ordinance or whatever was you had to be a foot off the lot line for every foot of antenna height or something to that effect. I just picked pretty much as I could dead square in the yard and said, this is where it's going. I'm in a side-by-side condo, not a big complex. So as long as my neighbor doesn't care, they were all fine with everything. So it's on my side of the split yard in the middle as best I could get it. So the biggest advantage to it too, I guess, is you can't see it from the street. It's back there, but this is the view from Evergreen, South Evergreen, and you don't see the antenna at all, really. And this is my 2-meter 440 swing set antenna. Since our daughter's older and living in Madison now, it's not a swing set, it's an antenna holder and a bird feeder holder, as well as a webcam holder here for close-up avian viewing when there's nothing else going on. This swing set also served a nice purpose. A couple years back, we had a big windstorm. It knocked several trees down. The trees fell on the swing set. The swing set held the trees up that fell. If the swing set wouldn't have been there, it would have taken out my Gap Titan DX. So it's worth every penny of the probably $50 I paid for it. I don't know how many years ago to put it there. This is shack number 2. This is upstairs. So the antennas are coming up. I just fed them up through the heater vent. This is an FT891 with a little LDG auto tuner. And then I found a really neat little tiny MFJ, 30 amp power supply. So that all works pretty nice. And, only 100 watts, but, if the conditions are right, I've talked to people in Cuba and kind of all over the place, so it's worked out okay if the band is cooperating that day. You don't always need all the power, that's for sure. And this is also the radio that I will deploy to my car, out on my boat, or out on the porch. I was disconnecting stuff on the FT891 all the time, and I got tired of doing it and trying to remember how to plug the stuff in correctly when I put it back. So this little radio has really been kind of nice for that. I also bought, as it says here, this detachable faceplate kit. So when it's in the car, the only thing that's up in front by me is the faceplate and the microphone. Everything else, including a separate battery, is in the back. I don't hook this up to the car battery. I have a separate Bioenno battery I'll show you a picture of later to power it when it's in the car or on the boat. But nice little radio, I like it. For handhelds, I figured I needed one for each ear. I mean, obviously I got the FT1 XD a couple years back, and then they came out with this pretty bright, shiny object over here. So I said, yeah, I'll take one of those. Very nice radios. I kind of standardized on Yaesu for no other reason that in general, the interface or the controls are similar. So that's kind of why you're seeing Yaesu here. This is the FTM 400 XCR. This is in my car. So that's mounted kind of on the side next to me in the front driver's side. And this is hooked up, wired direct to the car battery. This is a 25 watts, this model. And that's the detachable faceplate. I think the day I took the picture, I put a note here. I think it was K9QLP and KC9ONY were talking on 440. So you can see it's kind of lit up there. It's digital or analog on the top and analog on the bottom. And I've noticed with this close-up that I should probably vacuum the car a little bit because you can see a lot of crumbs here. But that faceplate's kind of similar to the FT891. That's what I'll just set on top of this if I'm putting HF in the car. Antenna-wise on the car, the middle one there, that's the for the 2 meter and 440. This is the mount for any HF ham sticks I'm using. It's worked out okay. I can't put it on the roof of the car for a variety of reasons, one of which is the whole top of the car is glass and there's a sunroof, so there's really no good place to mount it there. It's worked okay. I mean, I've driven out on Highway 60 with the 20-meter stick on here talking to a guy in Idaho one weekend. So it works okay. And it lets me have some fun with HF if I'm traveling now. And this is just a collection of the other ham sticks I have for different frequency bands. I have this antenna for either if I want to sit out on the deck and do something different or go to a park. So this is a MFJ NFED wire antenna. I've got one that's 66 feet long, so that'll cover 40 through 10. They make a longer one that will pick up 80 meters and a couple other bands that aren't harmonic on the 66. But 66 feet for me is about right because I can go from the porch to the swing set and use it that way. And I think I've got this one. I think this will take up to 800 watts, but I've never used it with anything other than the FT 891. These antennas, these are Wolf River coils. This is what I use on the boat. The only difference between the one that's up here and the one that's sitting on the ground is the bigger one has a larger frequency coverage. It's 100 watts, supports 100 watts. In the ground, this has radials, 3 of them, I think. I just drape them from the antenna over the side of the boat into the water. And I've made some contacts on that, so it works okay. I think as propagation gets better, it'll be better, but it's fun to try and do it sitting out on Lake Wisconsin. Because then I can tell people I'm maritime mobile, more or less. And these are Bioenno, the batteries, so this is what I'm using if I'm not plugged into AC current. These were sizes that I picked based on looking on Bioenno has a nice chart on their website, and you kind of can look in there and say, well, how am I going to use the radio? And they'll give you batteries that are sized for whether you're just having kind of fun with it or trying to do contesting where you're on a lot. So this is a 12 volt, 30 amp hour battery. That was their recommendation. So I've got 2 of these in case I really get into some kind of conversation out there. Very happy with how they work. I think for those of you who were on the web, the meeting last night, Tom Ruhlman mentioned the SDR play. This is the screen on one of my computers. And for this picture and the signals stuff you're looking at, I had it hooked up to my Gap Titan DX in the yard, which works really nice. I mean, really good reception on it. And it's kind of fun to play around with this. So the only thing that they had a note on there was the box that you're plugged into is rather sensitive. So they said, don't be transmitting with some kind of power and have this thing plugged in anywhere because you could fry it. So it's really just to receive, to see a really good presentation of kind of what the signal strength looks like. Sound quality is really nice, and it's easy to pick out the frequencies you want to go look at. Okay. And then last but not least, Ken, this one's for you. So these are all the guitars. Ken wanted to see all my guitars, so there they are. A Hofner Beetle bass down on the bottom, Fender Strat, a Martin HD28, and a Rickenbacker 620. And I think I estimated it's about 70 feet of wire, which could serve as an emergency antenna if all else failed. So I have to choose between all these lovely things when the band is playing. So there you go, Ken. And that concludes my presentation. I'm going to stop here, and then if there's questions or anything, we can either do them now or do them after the meeting. Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay, well, thank you, Mike. It looks like you are well on your way to having a basement and a house full of ham radio equipment.
A question on your Bioenno battery.
Yeah.
You got a 30 amp hour. I'm assuming that you can run 100 watts for a number of hours. Have you found out how long you can run it on a typical day?
I have never really pushed it, but I would think unless you are doing an awful lot of transmitting, you could certainly get pretty far with it. And I actually had 2 of them just in case I was, going to be contesting or something with it. It should give me more than enough time before I'd probably, want to stop. Because I think it's, well, if you're 100 watts, you're running 25 amps probably, so in theory, right, that's one solid hour, but you're never transmitting like that. So it really depends on how much you're cycling, I think, to determine how long it would last. I think on their website too, Fred, it would tell you, like if you're contesting, they might recommend a different size or something.
Well, when I've looked at them, somewhere the 30 amp hour looks like it'd be a nice choice. That's why I assume you picked it. The 40 amp hour is quite a bit more money, and it's heavier too if you got to carry it someplace. So I was just curious how long you actually got on the 30, or if you tried running it for something like maybe field day where you ran it all day.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long at the field day you get if you really were doing a lot, but yeah, these are fairly light batteries, and I made a little go kit where everything fits in some containers, and then I got it on a little dolly I can haul around. So it was the right size for what I was trying to do.
Mike, what do you use to recharge it?
I have a charger that Bioenno sells, because you have to kind of have a specific one to that type of battery.
Yeah, Mike, for your SDR Play, you have a little SDR Play box, I guess. It's like a 1A or something like that.
It's, the company has like 3 different ones. This is probably the lowest of the 3. So I think they get a little fancier as you go up the scale. So it's the basic one. I think it was like $900, something like that. It had a weird connecting thing that actually I have a scanner that uses from a regular size coax to a really small one, and I needed that because the connector on the antenna connector on the SDR Play is small.
Yeah,
So,
it's an SMA connector, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the scanner used. I said, oh, I got that. So I needed that, and then you needed an USB cable that had both the regular USB and then the square end on the other side.
Yeah, it's printer end of a USB cable.
Yeah, and so that's the other end of it. But when I plugged it in, and I think the first time I tried it was some little antenna, it didn't sound that great. When I plugged it up into the Gap Titan, man, it was like super. So,
hey, Mike, when you were putting your station together and you had the electrician put in a circuit, what size circuit did you put in?
He put in, I think in terms of amps, I think it's just 20 or whatever, and it's 110 volts. I didn't do 240. I mean, we looked at the current draws on everything, and he said for what you have, you don't need anything bigger than that. So it's not supersized or anything like that. Obviously, for some of these amplifiers, if you're running 240 volts or something else, that could be different. But I've never seen anything come close to causing a problem with what they did. I just wanted a circuit that was kind of separate from everything else, so he just put another circuit in the box for me.
Just a comment, Mike, on the detachable faceplates is that I've got a couple of radios that I have detachable faceplates for. If you want to put a radio in your car or truck, it makes it very, very easy for the mounting, because like modern vehicles just don't have space, and you probably don't want to be cutting a hole in the dashboard or something. And those what I found is that you can basically find a spot on the dashboard or someplace where you can sort of see it when you're driving, and just Velcro it in place. And that's just a very convenient, very nice feature. So something to really keep in mind, I guess, if you're looking for a mobile radio.
That's why on my car, because it had that like little compartment there where you could put stuff, that's why I just stuck the faceplate there for the 2 meter. And then if I'm using the HF one, I just kind of lay that on top of it, and then I don't have to have anything extra to do it. And you're right. So the FT891, then I've just got 2 extension cables, one for the mic and one for the faceplate, and then that's all that's up in the front of the car, and everything else is in the back. So.
I have a question, Mike. How much was your Bioenno 30 amp battery?
Oh, those are probably a couple $100 is I can't remember exactly, but yeah, they're not cheap. And I think as Fred said, if you go up in size, they just start really.
Yeah. The lithium iron phosphate is more expensive, but it's half the weight of the the lead acid batteries.
Yeah, yeah. And it's relatively a narrow form factor. So, I mean, probably two of them is the size of one car battery, because they're not that wide. So it was efficient because I can stick it in the back of the car, or it can go in the boat on the floor, and it doesn't take up a lot of space. And I haven't really tested how long you could run it if you're doing it hard, but I think it's probably pretty decent.
Yeah, I have a 31 amp hour battery. It's I forget what it was, probably just a gel cell, and then I have the 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate from Relion. So
No, it's been very good. I've never come close to running it down, but I haven't used it that hard yet, so I don't know, what the reality of how far you would get is.
Okay, any more questions for Mike? Okay, well, good job, Mike. Thank you very much for showing us what you've got and how it's set up. And I think especially when you're getting started in radio, or you are maybe moving into a new apartment or a new house or something, just exactly how do you set some of this stuff up, and where do you put it? I think that can be more of an issue than it seems when you've been doing it for a while. So I think it's good to review that. It looks like you got a pretty nice setup, and that you got everything arranged in a good manner too. So when you're using that 1,000-watt monitor speaker, how much power are you putting into it?
Not a whole lot, because it's pretty strong, to say the least. So I don't have the volume on the speaker turned up very high, or on the radio, because I only need to hear it. And I figured the sound quality would be kind of nice because it's designed as a vocal and instrument monitor, and it is. But my God, if you turn that thing up, I think the windows down in the basement would be shit. And that's a small speaker, so.
Okay, well, let's move on with our meeting, and if you guys want to have some more conversation about maybe station layout or station accessories or something, we can set up one of the breakout rooms for that after the meeting.